Hi, didn't see you there. Today, I'm going to tell you about the Syrian Revolution.
Syria as a nation has been a semi-republic with multiple political parties. But over the last few decades, Syria has been under the rule of the Assad family. Starting with Hafiz al-Assad, an oppressive ruler who had ruled with an iron fist. But even though Hafiz al-Assad has been very harsh to his citizens, his death was both wished for and not because of the propaganda within the nation of his eternal leadership. When Hafiz al-Assad passed, the transition to his son's rule was very smooth.
Bashar al-Assad promised a rule of liberty, freedom, and stability, which was eventually abandoned during the revolution. Bashar al-Assad failed to make Syria a stable country. When the Syrians revolted, the government led by the president Bashar al-Assad responded by killing hundreds of protestants, and many more were put into prison. Such brutal repression and killing were one of the main reasons for the revolution. People were becoming tired, especially intellectuals, and started to stir. Many nations before revolutions resemble the one in Syria. Many times the citizens, the majority of the nation, is being oppressed and has to face physical and mental problems in the nation.
Such relaxation of the laws did not last long. In 2001, the pressure and dissent from within the regime and some external pressure triggered the axis of evil and a war on terror, where the Syrian government reverted to the oppressive ways of the past. Activists and intellectuals were jailed again. The main protests began to stir up as many intellectuals felt that their rights needed to be respected and must have a dignity as human beings. And such doubts led on to the later revolutions. The government had also increased subsidies on oil and food and raised such prices by 72%, which was eventually lowered after a series of protests. When the people rose up for this injustice, the government's solution to the protests was violence. They used the deployed armies to kill and torture people. However, these actions did not stop these people. Instead, this led to larger protests, many influential changes in the revolution, and the start of the opposition groups.
Although opposition in different forms has always existed in Syria and among the Syrian diaspora, their political activities have been quite limited, and Syrian prisons have always hosted opposition figures. From the death of Hafiz al-Assad until the summer of 2001, a period of intense political and intellectual debate took place in Syria. One of the biggest opposition that goes against the Assad regime is the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood was one of the driving forces of the Syrian opposition. Its movement, founded in the mid-1940s, eventually banned after legally taking part in their political system. Even when there were some clashes with regime forces and shortcomings, the Muslim Brotherhood was able to survive and retain the biggest opposition against the Assad regime.
The opposition is mainly divided into two divisions, political and military, but also divided into even more myriad of groups, all with different beliefs and ideology. But all groups are intertwined and connected in ways. The SNC and the National Coalition of Syrian Revolution and opposite forces have been attempting to be recognized internationally, which also allowed the military groups called FSA obtain funds and weapons from other nations. But the FSA still now haven't been able to hold off lethal and strong weapons that can give them an upper hand, whereas the regime founded by Russia and Iran has huge influx of weapons. Both political and military opposition struggle with issues of division. The jihadi Salafist group and the moderate jihadi battalions all serve as an example.
So in short, the reason for multiple parties mainly includes the lack of unification and the diverse ideologies that are further pushed by the act's political dependence on foreign nation cause. But actions are being taken on multiple occasions to resolve such a problem. The SNC is an example of such an attempt to unify all political oppositions of the Syrian Revolution. But the SNC still faces many challenges as they easily lose track of the first goal of the revolution and stray to personal interest.
Efforts have been made to stop Syrian civil war, the most prominent being the Syrian peace process. It started with the Arab League in 2011 and slowly became more and more noticeable with the involvement of the United Nations and Russia and Western forces. There has been a lot of meetings such as the Geneva Peace Conference 2 and 3, the Vienna process, the Riyadh Conference, and the number of talks in Astana, with aim of bringing together the Syrian opposition and government to discuss on a truce. But despite the international efforts, the ongoing Syrian conflict has still not reached a conclusion. I believe that in order for the Syrian Revolution to succeed, there has to be a unification of opposition groups and less independence from other countries. The fact that the government is so strong, but the opposition groups are even more divided, is illogical. The only way for the opposition to win is through the process of unification.